I almost can't believe that it is that time of year again. It feels like it was yesterday when we were doing this the last time, but it is in fact time for us to do SnowTrax TV's Real World Sled of the Year competition. It's a week early this year.
It's a week early.
There's
first time
all
we've done
kinds
that.
of reasons for that, but yeah, it's upon us, and I feel like, where did this winter go?
We just had too much snow.
Or did we though?
No.
I mean, it wasn't a great winter.
No, wasn't an awesome winter.
For most people. Some people had a great winter, but it was
rode
tough.
every day we possibly could.
Every time the trails were open, we rode on the trails.
We trailered to small chunks of trail to be able to ride. We rode from two places that really weren't spots that we normally would do before, but we went out and did it because the trails were open there. So we did everything we could to get as much mileage on as we could. And actually, at the end of the day, I feel like we did get to ride a bunch. So
yeah, I mean, we put on a lot more miles than I think a lot of people got to.
Yep.
We're very fortunate with our jobs.
For sure.
But I say the one thing that happened is, in the very beginning when we did get some miles on, we really did whittle down the sleds from each manufacturer. It happened really quickly, the ones that stood out. I mean, sometimes it's tough, sometimes it takes a lot of time to figure out which one do we really like best. This year it was almost immediate. We're like, these 5 sleds are the ones that are standouts.
And I think that's because the manufacturers have started to refine down what they've had over the years. Besides the Catalyst, really most of the other sleds are known entities. They've just taken pieces and parts and made them better and really tweaked them to make those models better. I mean, the G5, you know, we had it in the Renegade the previous year. Now we've got it in the competition package. You know, the Lynx, they also got the new bodywork, but really the same platform. So just refinement of those products. And same thing with Polaris. I mean, their sled was a refinement. Yamaha's sled was just a continued refinement. It's the same thing. So really the Catalyst was the only
new one.
Yeah, the only eye-opener.
The only unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there was a base level of information for us on all these sleds. It's just, we're more evaluating the differences versus evaluating a whole sled. And that's really the way it works for us. I mean, we don't always evaluate a sled like it's all new, because it's not. Sometimes we're literally just evaluating what's different from last year, and that's pretty normal. Anyway, to put all that in perspective, we narrowed it down very quickly to 5 sleds, and I feel very confident about our picks this year.
Yeah, I do too.
So, what are they?
Well, we have Polaris's Assault Boost, which is just, you know, a sled that's been in this running how many years? I mean, it's probably #1 for being in the running. Then we have Skidoo's competition package 850 Turbo, brand new sled this year. We have Yamaha's XTX Sidewinder, which is not a new sled this year, but it's, you know, one of the last years you're going to be able to get it. We have the Catalyst 600 with ATAC. And then we have Lynx's Rave RE 3500. And it is a lineup of very high-end sleds.
It is.
But the reality is we get to ride all of the sleds, and if I get to go out and pick one, there's some creature comforts that I like, and there's some of these premium sleds that are really dang
We
good.
pretty much always pick premium sleds.
We do, but I mean, you know, if you got the Ferrari or you got the Fiesta, you know, let's be honest.
And we have heard our viewers. Next season, we've got some more entry-level stuff coming.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a budget 600 class.
So we really want to do that because we hear you. But when it comes down to it, when I've got a fleet of sleds in the yard and every day I can go out and ride, I'm just gonna pick the one that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesomer.
Yeah, this is like the SnowTrax real awesome sled of the year award, because like we're picking the sled that we think is the best, and we don't necessarily, budget is one of the things that we consider, but it's not necessarily the highest thing we consider. And I know a lot of people say, well, I can't afford it. That's okay. If you break some of these sleds down, you can still get the chassis, you can still get the suspension, you can still get the engine in different variations and different prices. So take it for what it's worth.
So the way we did the evaluation this year is the way we've done it most years, and it's because you've let us know that this is how you prefer it. We did it by category. So we have 8 categories of consideration, and the first 2 are the most obvious: ride quality front, ride quality rear. And I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory. How good does the sled ride? It's not about necessarily what shocks does it have, it's how does it soak up bumps, and is it better than everybody else? That's all it is, front and rear.
Yeah, and in its given discipline, I think is key to talk about as well. And then we have obviously handling, which is huge. the way a sled handles pretty much determines whether you like it or don't like it.
Whether you want to ride it.
Exactly, yeah. And then we have ergonomics. And ergonomics is one of those ones that I think is always very
subjective.
Subjective,
it is.
because certain people fit on certain sleds. You and I both have snowmobiles that we love and hate, and they're complete opposite from one another.
And we also have sleds that we totally agree on.
Exactly, we do have that as well.
So the next category is overall comfort. What we mean by this is how comfortable is that sled to ride day in and day out? So it doesn't just mean how soft is the suspension. It means what's the wind protection like? Do your knees get cold?
Do they rub somewhere?
Do they rub somewhere? Your hands, do they fit right on the handlebars, or is it uncomfortable? Things like, is the seat soft enough, or
too soft?
Or is it too soft? Yeah. And then of course the next one is, I called it overall flexibility. And what I mean by that is, does the sled only do what it is set from the factory to do, or can you make it do other things? So, you know, you got 2-up seats that can come on and off. That's very flexible. You got storage options that come on and off. That's very flexible. There's all kinds of different ways that you can judge flexibility, but for the most part, it's just, is this a one-trick pony, or can it do more than one thing?
Absolutely. And then another category that we're going to do is fun factor. I mean, just how fun is this sled to ride? And I think that's one that's tangible for all of us. Like, you can get on a snowmobile and be, yeah, you know what, this is a good sled, I enjoyed it, but it might be a 2-up beast of a snowmobile that weighs 900 pounds, and you go, it was okay, and I could get from point A to point B, but it just didn't have that fun factor. So fun factor is important because this is an enthusiast sport. And then obviously, a key one is value. I mean, you got to look at value, how much you're getting for what you paid, and are you, you know, do you feel like you may be overpaid? Do you feel like you, at the end of the day, you know, stole this thing? Where does it fit in that line?
We're not saying that like a Catalyst 600 being less money than a Polaris Turbo makes it more valuable.
No.
It's, what are you getting for your money? Would
value
you
for the dollar.
spend more to get what you're getting?
Exactly.
So,
And then the obvious one that we're leaving out is power, but that's because it's far too subjective to that snowmobile in that category, and it's better as a shootout. I just don't think we can compare an 850 Turbo against the 650.
We tried really hard to figure out how we were going to do that.
I know we did, yeah.
And we just came to the conclusion that you just can't compare power in this category. It just doesn't make any sense in this competition. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So, again, we did a point system, and this is our
Holy Grail.
This is the finale.
Yeah,
this is what it means.
Yeah.
And I think what it really said right off the top was that there were 3 sleds that stood out, but 2 that stood out more than anything else.
Yeah, 2 rows to the top, pretty heavy.
Yeah, pretty, and not by a little bit. We're talking like
a lot.
Over 10 points each. The Catalyst, people love the Catalyst. Everybody who rides it loves it, but it does have a few shortcomings that hurt it in the points.
It's got an older generation rear suspension that doesn't compete as well with Lynx, Skidoo.
A very inferior front arm shock.
Yeah. And it just, you know, even with the ATAC is very good. But the ATAC doesn't read the trail and the inputs from the snowmobile. The ATAC just adjusts your suspension compression and rebound, right? So
it's not smart.
It's convenience. It doesn't actually do something like the other manufacturers, you know, are doing. So that's different.
And then the Sidewinder, I mean, the Sidewinder is a great snowmobile. It's stupid fast. It actually handles pretty good. They ride really well.
We now admit that it is actually a fairly light sled in comparison to other 4-strokes.
So the Sidewinder is a great snowmobile. I still stand by that. I still believe that.
Yeah, it's an older generation sled, though, that's been very similar for a long time. So I think it's very worth talking about. And I mean, if you're that kind of guy who's like, I do not want to do anything other than maintenance for 35, 40,000 kilometers, probably these snowmobiles, that's going to be the only one left on the page after that many K if you don't do something serious. The rest are going to be in the shop. So that's something to talk about if you're a guy who really wants a longevity type snowmobile.
100%.
So there's value there.
And then I think one of the surprising ones was that the XRS competition package Turbo ended up in 3rd place, I think, overall by points.
You know, it's a good sled.
It is.
It is a really good sled. The problem is that the Lynx delivers better suspension compliance, better ride and handling characteristics, and the turbo motor just didn't hit quite as hard as the Polaris Turbo did this year. And I will say, last year when we tested everything late season up at altitude, the Polaris Turbo motor had some things that we weren't impressed with. And whatever they did throughout the summer when it came to setup on that snowmobile, it delivered this year, and man, did it hit
Watch
like
my
a
test
ton
ride
of
on
bricks.
this sled next week, and I go into a little bit more
detail on
detail on
the Polaris Boost outperformed the Skidoo Turbo.
Yeah. And
so,
I think, you know, as typical, I hate to keep harping on this, but we just have to be honest about this. We're going to make people mad, and I don't care. The front end of the Skidoo holds it back. It just does. And I get it. There's
but
some
why does the Lynx handle so much better? It's got to be those 46 shocks.
Well, and I think the relationship of the shocks in the front end with the rear end and how it transfers weight. And basically, at the end of the day, what it boils down to is that the Assault Boost and Lynx's RAV RE were standout sleds for us this year.
And
AJ
everybody
and I both.
wanted to ride them.
Everybody
wanted to get on them.
Yep, and I mean, we spent a lot of time, you and I, Mark, other test riders that we you know, respect, whose their opinions we respect.
Yep.
So we spent a lot of time just trying to figure out which of these two sleds is giving you the overall best riding experience. And I mean, you know, the Assault does things like handling is the best handling. It is.
Yeah. And it doesn't lift an inside ski. The RAV does lift an inside ski when it gets, and some people like that. That's where it comes down to ergonomics. Some people are like, I love the way my Skidoo feels like it's bolted to the trail. And it's like, that's good for you. Certain people don't like that, but the Polaris has that nice amount where it just kind of catches through a corner and the inside ski stays down.
It gives you very confidence-inspiring outside ski bite that never falters. It's always there. Whereas other sleds, sometimes they let go.
The Catalyst has a good front end, but the Catalyst will push more through corners than those other sleds do.
And it's very dependent on snow conditions.
Yes.
The Catalyst can handle great or handle not so great depending on snow conditions.
Yeah, they go away pretty quick.
You take a Polaris out, it doesn't matter if it's dirt, it still handles good. So, you know, it's
the
got
Skidoo
that
lifts the inside ski too much, in my opinion. The Lynx lifts it a lot less. And that was one of those things we always wondered, why is the Lynx like this? But I think it's those Pro 46 shocks that change everything.
And the
BBS rear skid.
It's like magical powder they put on there.
Yeah, it just really works good. Now, saying that, if you took a base model Skidoo against a Lynx, you have to pay a lot of money to get that front end performance. So, you know, you're paying for what you're getting with the Lynx. But I mean, talking about value as well, I guess that's something we haven't really discussed yet. The Lynx is like $3,000 cheaper than the Skidoo Turbo and the Polaris, which is, I mean, $3,000. That's a lot of money, and a Lynx really is a premium ride. So you're getting a lot of good there.
And the question you have to ask yourself, and it really does boil down to what do you want? How much money are you willing to pay for that turbo? Yeah. And interesting, we talked about this a little bit before. Last season, I would have said 100%, I would not spend a dime more for a Polaris Turbo. I want the 850 naturally aspirated.
It did not work as good as it does this year.
But
not
this year, I got on it with low expectations, and honestly, it blew my mind how different it is. It's a completely different snowmobile. The Skidoo, the Turbo, again, it's very impressive. But I don't know if I'd spend that much more. Because the 850 E-Tech is really good too.
The 850 E-Tech in that Lynx chassis
is wicked.
Is awesome. And I have a feeling that Skidoo will pump up the jams when it comes to their turbo because it did not deliver to the same degree as the Polaris, and they will not stand for that. So I have a feeling that next season you're going to see that thing hit like a ton of bricks. So
this might
I mean, Polaris did it this year because last year, I think it would have been probably the Skidoo over the Polaris from their last year calibration. But it isn't now. And I think that they knew, and they tested the Skidoo, and they went, all right, what do we take that wastegate and hold it up a bit more.
They just turned they turned the awesome meter up.
Yeah, they turned the go dial. So, and it worked.
The RAV and the Assault, obviously, those are our top two. The numbers completely support this. We've talked about how the Polaris, ride quality in the front is the best.
Yeah, the best.
Handling is arguably the best. But the Lynx, it scored really high in rear end ride quality. It scored really high in
fun factor.
Ergonomics. It beat the Polaris in ergonomics because it is a very comfortable sled to sit on.
If it came to looks, I would take the Lynx 10 times out of 10. That is such a good looking sled with those little lights up front and the angularness. And I know some people, compare it to different, animated characters and stuff. Whatever, you can do that with everything.
It still has that, panache of it's a Lynx. It's still got that even after
Kashima coating
3 years on the snow.
You might as well Kashima coat the whole flipping thing. It's just
slide right off.
Oh yeah, it's just awesome. It is a great looking sled in my opinion, and fit and finish. And don't get me wrong, they got all this stuff from Skidoo because Skidoo's fit and finish has been 10 out of 10 on all their BRP products. So that's something to be said. If you buy a Lynx, you're not going to be disappointed in any of those kind of quality.
And then when we get to the value factor, we talked a little bit about this. The Lynx won that.
It's high.
Because you're getting a lot for your money, man.
And a lot of sled.
A lot. Yep. And the Polaris came second because you're still getting a lot for your money. These are our picks, but
Yeah.
now we got to figure out which one is the one.
Yeah.
The points are ridiculously close on here. They're so close.
Yeah.
What it proved, actually, what's interesting when you look at these points, is the Polaris was either the best or the third best in
Yeah.
most of its own categories.
Yep.
It was never second place. It's first place or it's third place.
Yeah.
The Lynx is oftentimes second place
Yeah.
in all the categories, where other people are switching around. Polaris is third, somebody else is first. The Lynx is like steady second.
Yeah.
The law of averages does work in things' favor. However, at the end of the day, there's a fun factor, there's a comfort factor, there's a flexibility factor, there's just an overall excitement of riding factor.
The Assault has been in this mix over the years for Sled of the Year awards so many times, and it's for a reason.
Yeah.
It does everything so well.
Yep.
If they hadn't have updated the boost kind of mapping or whatever they did, if they hadn't have tweaked that thing
It wouldn't have won.
and calibrated it, it wouldn't have won. If Lynx had the R-Motion rear suspension in it, it wouldn't have the playful factor, but it would have the best handling rear suspension and might have won.
Or if the Lynx had a turbo.
If the Lynx had a turbo, it could have won. So
Yeah.
there's like, we were splitting hairs here,
Yeah.
but the reality is, at the end of the day, that Polaris turbo is impressive. They
And-
calibrated it right, they did everything
Yep.
right, and it's such a good sled at bridging. Like, you can trail ride that thing with anybody with an XCR or an
Yep.
XRS or a Catalyst or whatever sled you want. You can run the trails as fast as those
Yep.
guys. But then, if you ordered it with a 2-inch track, you can pull off trail and go where those guys can't ever
Yep.
dream of going.
We really did consider these sleds from a trail perspective. Even my
Yeah.
test ride coming up on the Assault is done pretty much entirely from a trail perspective,
Yeah.
because I wanted it to be fair.
Yeah.
And the crazy part is that the Assault makes a better trail sled than most other trail sleds do,
Yeah.
but it can go off trail. Interestingly, last year, when we sat down to do Sled of the Year, we didn't even have the Assault in the running. We
Yep.
took it as a spare sled for a camera guy while we were doing some evaluations. I got on it and said, we all need to ride this, and it ended
Yeah.
up in the running because it was that good. And it
They've
deserves
refined
it.
the snowmobile
Yeah.
as a whole, and that's one of the things that, Polaris has been doing over the past couple of years. That, yeah, there's been some things where they've had some stop rides and whatever, but they continue to refine, they continue to put that time and that effort in to make things better, to push harder, to push forwards. I mean, 2025, they've got so much cool stuff
Yeah.
coming. They just continue to push, and it's not to say that others haven't, but they got it real right this year with that sled.
So there you go. Polaris 2024 Assault Boost is SnowTrax TV's Real World Sled of the Year.
For the past many years, we've brought you the Revolutionary Advanced Design Award, or RAD, for technology that truly pushes the limits of our sport and advances the technologies we see in production snowmobiles. While the award can be given for any one piece of technology, it can also be given to a larger idea, such as a new platform that's pushed the limits of current technology, brought new ideas, new innovations, and a greater focus on things like mass centralization and weight savings. And for 2024, that new platform is the Arctic Cat Catalyst, taking weight savings and industry-pushing technology to the next level. The Catalyst platform is the lightest full-size production sled in the industry, but getting there was no easy feat. The engineers at Arctic Cat had to implement some very advanced design ideas, such as industry-first composite running boards, or the industry-first drive belt on a trail sled, as well as skin-tight body panels, suspension weight savings, along with Arctic Cat's proprietary laydown engine architecture for an incredibly low center of gravity. All of this is combined with a centralized design that works perfectly in unison with the rider, providing more control and less effort than ever. And after a full season of our testing, we can attest to the fact that the Arctic Cat Catalyst is the lightest platform on snow. And as the saying goes, light is right. The corner-to-corner performance that this platform delivers is incredible, yet so is the durability of the design, with no noticeable issues with any of the new technology that Arctic Cat has implemented. And when you step this far out of the box with something this new, that's another very impressive feather in Arctic Cat's cap. The future looks very bright for the Catalyst platform, and we're excited to see where Arctic Cat will take it in the future. With a focus on lightweight, low CG, and a rider-focused centralized design, Arctic Cat has not only stepped way outside of the box, they decided to just build a new one. And it worked. And it's for all of these reasons that we are pleased to award the Arctic Cat Catalyst platform with the 2024 SnowTrax RAD Award.